Okay. Alrighty. I am live. All right. I think I've got it adjusted, the camera, and I'm going to wait for just a second because people are just starting to come in, and then we shall get started. All right. Okay. I see people are here. Hey, Deb. Hi, Jennifer. How's everybody doing today? I hope well. It's just starting to rain here, so I don't think that will affect the broadcast here, but you never know. So let's hope not. Okay, so we have a lot of ground to cover here. Um, basically, if you got a kit, you should have uh, gotten it put together for today. Um, it may be hard for you to follow me while I'm doing this live, but it will be recorded, so you'll be able to do the replay. Sometimes the Facebook replays work, and sometimes you'll have to go to YouTube. They always work on YouTube, so that might be a better option. And there is a link at the very top of the group page where it says featured, and it has my logo on there, and you can click on that, and it'll take you to the YouTube channel. So, all right. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Tammy. Okay. All right. Okay. You got your first rain in months, Jennifer? Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Everybody needs rain, so at least around here. Okay. So hopefully you did your homework if you bought a kit, and you can follow along. There's a few things that I want to go over before we actually get started. This is a project that you can work on as long as you want, but if you have to leave it, there's a certain way that you need to leave your disk set up so that way you find your place when you come back. That is something that is extremely important because if you pick up somewhere where you didn't leave off, you're going to have a hole in your necklace. It will show where the bead was skipped. So just need to take a few precautions to ensure success. Um, Hi, Dawn. Hi, Jan. Okay, so the first thing after you've strung your beads, which you should have done or you can do later if you're not following along, the first things I would recommend would be to mark on your disc the direction that you're going to be turning your disc. We're going to do our little movement and then turn a quarter turn. Do our little movement and turn a quarter turn. You always want to be going in the same direction that you started. If for some reason you get confused and you go back the other way, you're going to have a hole in your beads. So that is not something that you want to happen. I mean, this is a fair amount of work when you're doing a necklace as opposed to a bracelet. So you want to make sure that it's as perfect as it can be. Okay. Um, there is no way to add a bead if you've skipped one. You can't sew one in. You can't glue one in. It's just not gonna be there. So you'll see the cords where the bead got skipped. All right. So we're gonna try really hard not to do that. The other thing that I recommend is when you do this project, do it in quiet. Don't try to have a conversation with somebody else. You need to really concentrate on what you're doing so that you don't skip a bead, or miss your place, something like that. Believe me, I have done all the things that that you can do wrong when you make one of these. Now, some people have the mental capacity, if they've skipped a bead, to be able to backtrack and kind of take off the strings, until they get to that place where they miss the bead. I am not that person. If I skip a bead, it's and I haven't noticed it, it's going to stay that way. If it's just within the very last round or two, I can probably do that. But beyond that, I can't go backwards with it. But I know people can. I'm just not one of them. So, my recommendation for that, not only by paying attention to what you're doing, is to be looking under there and checking very often to make sure that you haven't skipped anything. That will help you out a lot. So, yeah, so Pat, yeah, if you're going to watch on replay, sometimes, maybe for this, I would just try to watch me and then maybe do it, replay the video and then do it. I don't know. You can try it. All I'm saying is it requires good concentration when you're doing this. At least for me. Maybe for you, you can handle that. I don't know. My brain is just like right there. So, okay, so what I would do first off, if you haven't already done this, um, is mark the direction you're going to go. I put arrows on my disc, and I always tend to turn from left to right, but you can do it however. And I just made a series of arrows to remind me that that's the direction that I'm going in. Okay, so you might want to mark that on there. And I used a ballpoint pen. I imagine you could use a Sharpie as well. I don't know. I just used a ballpoint pen. Okay. Then the next thing I noted on my disc was leave 3 strands at the top. That's a mental or a reminder that when you have to leave your work, you want to leave it with 3 strands up at the top. And I'll show you what that means. But that's a good thing to write down on your disc to remember. If you leave the disc normally will have 2 strands across and 2 strands vertically, and if you leave your disc that way with 2 2 2 and 2, you don't know where you stopped and where you're going to start. So if you leave your last move up with 3 strings up at the top, then that way you know what your next move is going to be. Okay, so that's just another little tip that is very helpful. I also wrote on my disc bottom left to top left on here as my first move. Bottom left to top left. And I'll show you what that means as well. But that might be something you want to write on your disc as well. What we're going to work off of are these 4 black dots that are on here. Don't let the numbers intimidate you, because we're not really, other than the initial setup, we're not going to be needing these numbers at all. So when people look at this, sometimes they say, oh no, I could never do that. I could never, do this string and that string. It's not quite like that. I think the disc has been created for several different types of projects, and the one that we're doing does not require knowing what the numbers are. It's these black dots that are important just at the start. Okay, so what I've done is I'm going to start the silver necklace on this disc, and I'll show you how I set the strings up, and I will go through the movements several times. But in reality, you're not going to get maybe the close-ups that you might need to really see what I'm doing. I'll try to do the best that I can to show you. I did list the handout earlier, but I said to look at it and you can kind of see close-ups, but they're really not that great at close-ups. So I'm going to try between the live demo and the instructions that hopefully you'll get the point across. And it takes hours to do the necklace. So there's no way in the world I can start and finish this during this session. But what I did was I made another necklace, and this one will be ready to finish today. So you can see how I close it off, okay, and add the cones and, all that stuff. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have that that visual, from me. So anyway, this will work on later, but that's right at the point where it needs to be finished off. All right. I will try to answer whatever questions I can as I'm working. And we'll go from there. So you should have your head pins, 2 of the 3-inch head pins. If you didn't get a kit, you can always use wire. This is, I think, 22 gauge wire. So you'll need that. You'll need a pair of cones, end cones. Now, these are cones that I got from Tierra Cast. These are, I want to say they're 9mm inside diameter here. These are fairly skinny. So if you tried to use these particular cones on a size 8 bead, they would be too small. But these are perfect for the size 11s that we're using today. Okay, so that's something else to keep in mind. You should have a 1/2 ounce weight. This is a lead weight. I am not intimidated by touching this lead weight. I'm not going to lick it. I'm not going to lick my fingers after I've been touching it. And I'm not really going to be holding it for more than a minute. So if the lead part freaks you out, you can cover it in a coat of nail polish, and that will eliminate you touching the bare lead. Okay, or you could put it in a little teeny plastic baggie, or maybe wrap some tape around it or something like that if that is a concern to you. Okay, I also keep a little fabric, well, I guess it's just a yard measuring tape. I keep that so that I can check my length as I'm going along. It just depends on what length you want your necklace to be. This one that I completed for the demo pick, I want to say this one's 22 inches long. And in the homework that I set up, or set out with the kits, I explained that if you want a 22-inch necklace, you put 22 inches of beads on each strand, each of the 4 strands. So, and if you wanted a 24-inch necklace, you would put 24 inches, or 18, you would put 18 inches of beads on each cord. It's just that simple, really. The cord that I suggested, well, I said to cut it 4 yards per string. I think that was maybe a little overkill on my part. I think you could get by with a little bit less, but I would rather err on the side of having too much than not enough, because that would be a problem. Okay. All right, so there's that. Just putting on the beads, and then we should be ready to roll. Oh, the other thing, which is not a perfect science, at least for me, is spooling your extra cord and your beads. You don't want to have your bobbins like super long, or your threads super long, because you're going to get tangled. The longer they are, the more tangled they get. So you want to have a manageable length of cord with the bobbins exposed. You're going to have 8 of them kind of jingling around there. So what I did was I rolled up a portion of the extra yarn without the beads, and then I put a few beads in the bobbin, and then so forth and so on. So then as I use up that cord and the beads, I can release some of the cord and the beads from the bobbin, and then it makes it much more manageable. Okay, so it's easier to see it than for me to say it. So we will go on to setting up, excuse me, the disc. Now, another important thing is to have a vase or something tall that your disc will fit on top of. The one that I use the most is an empty biscotti jar. It's got a nice diameter for the top. It sits on there real nice. And then the other favorite is a big ceramic jar. So you could just set it on here. And I'm not going to work off of this. I'm just using this to place the disc when I'm not using it, to just place it aside and to prevent the cords from getting tangled. It's just easier to work with it that way. So the best way, the best position that you can be in is away from a table, sitting sort of on the edge of your chair, and kind of work with this with your knees open a little bit, so then the cords can just dangle down and not get hung up on anything. That's the easiest way I've found to work on it. It works. So let me get a sip of water here. All right. All right. So now we're ready to set up. I'm going to get my cords. I just had them hanging on a handle. Okay. All right. So I've got my 4 cords here. Now, the reason that I had you set up the way I did was, see, they get tangled right away. These are maybe a tad longer than they need to be right now, but I get impatient sometimes when I'm working and I want to just keep going, and I don't want to, keep releasing it from the bobbin, but really that's the right way to do it. The other thing when you were setting up that I had you do is I had you put a little black dot, like with a Sharpie marker, in the very center of the strands before these were rolled up in the bobbins. So that way I knew that I had, and I put the tape here as well. That way I knew that I had equal amounts of beads on both of these sides of the strand. Okay. You're doing 4 cords, but it actually turns into 8 cords when we lay it on the disc. And we want to have equal amounts, so that way you don't run out on one strand and have way on one strand and then have way too much on the other strand. It keeps it all even. But I keep the tape on it until I get these all centered on the disc. All right. So I'm going to take my disc. Let me see if I can move the camera up a little bit more so that you can see what I'm doing when I'm doing it on the disc. Okay, so I've got one set of cords right here. Take this one down. And like I said before, I'm working only off of these black dots. And the dots are positioned at 16 and 32 right here. That's where I'm going to put my first cord. So I'm going to go between, this is in the handout as well. I'm going to go between, I'm going on either side. I'm going to put a strand on either side of these black dots. So the cord should be in between the slot on 32 and 1. And then on the opposite side should be between 15 and 16. Okay. Are you guys still seeing me okay? Deb, I'm not sure what you mean, but let me ask and see if everybody's still seeing or if the video has stopped. All right, looks like the video stopped momentarily. If you continue to have problems with the video stopping, please let me know. Okay, and I'll keep going. If for some reason the video cuts out and we can't get back on it, I will try to do this by myself, not live, but and then post it. But hopefully we can get through this together. Okay, so the first strand placement was between 32 and 1 in the slot, and then between 15 and 16 in the slot. Okay, and then I want to bring that tape to be right in the center. I'm going to take that tape off after I get these lined up. Well, actually, I could take it off right now. It was just, the tape was just there to prevent the beads from sliding over into the other side. All right, but I want to keep that little black dot that I made directly in the center of this hole. Okay, so then I'm going to take my next set of bobbins. I can take the tape off right now, actually. But having that little black dot lines me up perfectly in the middle. So now I'm going between 31 and 32 and 16 and 17 and put my cords in the slot and make sure that my black dot is in the center. Okay, then I'm going to, so those two black dots have a cord on either side. Now we're going to put the cords on either side of these black dots. All right. Take my tape off. All right. And then I'm going between 24 and 25 and between 7 and 8. That's on one side of the black dot. And now we're going to go on the other side of the black dot with the remaining cord. So this is between 23 and 24 and between 8 and 9. So now you have all 4 cords loaded on here. And we want the little black dots in the middle. Okay, so that is perfectly lined up. Now we're going to take one of the head pins. I'm going to take one of the head pins and a round nose plier. And I'm going to make just a hook on the one end. Just turn it over. Make like a little hook right there. Okay. Make it a little bit more in like that. And then on the opposite end, I'm going to make a hook going the other direction. So it's kind of like an elongated S, like that. Okay. And then I'm going to hang my weight on one end. And then I'm going to take this hook and I'm going to enter, I want to catch all 4 cords. So I'm kind of going to go in on a diagonal. Let's see here. I'm going to go in diagonally and just kind of go over and grab all the cords. Did you see what I did? I'm going over and grabbing all 4 cords. And then I'm going to just squeeze this hook a little bit more, just so it doesn't fly out or fall out. Okay. Is the video okay now? Okay. You just never know. You never know with the live things. All right. So we're in starting position. If you've marked your board or your disc, we're going to take the first string, which is between 16 and 17. We're going to take that, and we're just taking the cord. We're not going to let the beads fall down. What we have to do initially is make a little stem of like a little braid, little tiny braid first before we start sending the beads into the mix. Okay, so we want to establish that little cord because we're going to incorporate this wire into that little braid, and then we're going to put our end cone on that at the end when we're done. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do, let's see here, and try to get things out of your way so you don't get hung up on anything. And you see what I'm saying about the bobbins kind of dangling along. So what I'm going to do for my first move is I'm going to take the string that's between 16 and 17 and lift it out of the slot and bring it up to between 30 and 31. And make sure that you slide it in the slot. Sometimes when you're working with a brand new disc, it's a little stiff, but after you've done a few of these, it loosens up just a bit, so it will be easier for you to get the strings in and out. All right, so right now, I have 3 strands up at the top, and this is where I want you, if you need to stop working, this is the position that you should be in when you stop, because the next position, the next move will always be the string that's between 32 and 1. Lift that up and come down between 14 and 15. And now I'm going to do a quarter turn. Now I'm going to take this other dot or other string that's by the other black dot. This is where we're starting out, but we're going to be moving away from those dots. Okay, that's just part of the process. So I lift the bottom left string and I bring it up to the top left. So you have 3 strands all the time up at the top. And then I'm going to bring the string between 8 and 9 down between 22 and 23, and then quarter turn. Then I'm going from the bottom left to the top left, top right to the bottom right, quarter turn. Bottom left to the top left, top right to the lower right, quarter turn. So right now I'm making the little woven nub that's going to be at the end. Okay. So I'm going from the bottom left to the top left, and from the top right to the lower right, and quarter turn. Bottom left to the top left, top right to the bottom right, quarter turn. Bottom left to the top left, and now is where I'm going to start my beads. So I have my 3 strands at the top. Okay. And now I'm going to take that strand out of the top right and take 1 bead. Just make sure only 1 bead goes down. And when you let it go down, it needs to go under the cord that's adjacent to it, and then quarter turn. Now we're going to add another bead, lower left, that bead just slides down naturally right under the cord that's adjacent to it. And then top left. Okay. So I don't know if you can see that or not. Hopefully. I've got my 3 cords up here while I'm showing you, so that way I know what I'm going to be doing next. Okay. If you start in this position, the beads should go right underneath the adjacent cord. So I'm sending one down, it falls right into place, quarter turn. 1 bead, lower left to top left. 1 bead going down to lower right and quarter turn. Lower left, let that bead go down and hook my cord up here. All right, now let me see. Rita, has the video stopped completely, or are you still seeing me? Well, I guess maybe you wouldn't see me if it was still stopped. I can't go backwards on this. Let's see. Are you guys getting the gist of it, or are you throwing your hands up and saying, why did I buy this kit? Because I promise you, it gets much easier as you go along. You're just establishing, right now, you're introducing those beads. And if you start in the manner that I showed you, when you release that bead to go down, it should just naturally go down under the cord that's next to it, as long as you've got it all set up right. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, I can see momentarily I'll get a green screen. So maybe the weather outside is having something to do with this. And for that, I can't manage that. I can't prevent that from happening, unfortunately. That's the downside of doing live videos. Okay, so I had left my 3 cords at the top, so I'm going to continue where I am. The next move is going to be moving that 3rd cord, the upper right to the lower right. See, it goes down right where it's supposed to go into here and turn. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right. Lower left to upper left, upper left, I'm sorry, upper right to lower right, quarter turn. Okay. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn. Always remember to do that quarter turn, or things just won't nest right. If you don't do the turns exactly when you should, things aren't going to line up right. You will get into a rhythm, I promise. After you do this a little while, you'll get into a rhythm with your movements. Now, when you're working with the cord, sometimes they loosen up a little bit and sometimes they stray from being in the center. So I will pull on the cord just a little bit on each side, just to make sure that I get everything centered and keep the works, directly centered in that hole. Okay, so here again, I've got my 3 cords at the top, and I'm going to go down and take the upper right, let my bead go down, and go to the lower right, quarter turn, lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn, lower left to upper left, and then you can see that you're starting to make the braid right there. It's starting to come out. So it's actually pretty amazing how quickly it goes. Chris, I don't know. Do you have the disc set up just like I have it? Because if you start introducing your beads from the top 3 strands, when you have the top 3 strands, that's when you introduce your first bead. It just naturally falls right where it's supposed to go. I mean, you might have to just coax it slightly, but it should go right underneath the adjacent string. I don't know. You could maybe be doing it too tight, but I don't know how much tighter. Try to loosen up the slack just a little bit so that you don't lose your cords, that they don't come out. But I suppose maybe might be too tight. That could be an option, or a reason, I should say. And you just keep winding around until you need to release some thread. Now see this one, just the way I had it set up, this one I hardly have any cord here, so I have to release a little bit. So I'm just going to open up that bobbin a little bit and let a little bit more cord come down, and then snap that back closed. That way I have a little bit. See, each of these will have to be, it requires more cord, not beads, but cord at this point. You just allow a little bit more cord down so you can work easier with them. I'm going to do this one-handed. Well, I'm sorry, Tammy. It has to be the weather, because the broadcasts aren't always like that. So if you guys tell me, it's like too hard to watch, if it continues to be interrupted like that, I guess I'll have to do it over. I don't know what else to say. So I'm just going to keep going with it for a while, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I left off with the 3 strands up at the top. So now I know that that's where I'm going to start, with that upper right to lower right, quarter turn. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn, lower left to upper left. And now I'm going to center my cords a little bit better because they got a little wonky, a little off center. But it's easy to straighten them back out. And Deb, that's true. It becomes natural after a little while. Really, the replays are always fine? That's so weird, Deb. I don't know why that happens. But, I got to say that since it's raining out, maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know. So, all right. So I'm going to go around a few more times and then we'll check on the length. Of course, it's not going to be a lot right now, but the idea is for you to get in the rhythm of the movement. It really is so repetitious. It's the same thing over and over again until you reach the length that you want and the release of the extra cord. And eventually you're going to have extra beads released, but they're in the bobbin, so that's not a problem. Okay, so we start back up at upper right where the 3 cords were. Let the bead go down and to the lower right, quarter turn. Lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right. And always make sure that you only let that one bead go down at a time. It would be very simple or easy for more beads to come down that string, and you have to just make sure you can stop it with your fingernail or whatever to prevent any more than that one bead to come down. Go under. Chris, are you continuing to try on your on possibly the tension? Okay, to upper right. Now, here's another thing that I've learned when I'm doing this is the type of cord you're using has a big impact on your the outcome of the feel. I should say the feel. It needs to be the cord needs to be, or the project needs to be, all the beads need to be uniform in the right tension. Different strings can produce a different type of, I don't know if it's tension, if that's the right word to use or not, but say if I used beading thread, just for an example, it doesn't have the weight that this tough cord has. So you're going to get a real floppy bracelet or necklace. It's you're not going to get those tighter spaces between your beads. It's going to look more, the design is more, it's not stretchy, but it feels like it's more stretched out than compact. This is very compact. It's not stiff. It's very supple actually, but if you use the wrong kind of cord, that affects the outcome of how the feel and how your beads nest. The other thing is using uniform beads, and your Miyuki Japanese seed beads are probably the most precision cut seed beads. If you compare the Japanese seed beads, like the Miyuki or Toho brand, if you compare those to seed beads that you would get like at a craft store, you could see the difference in, they're not uniform. You'll get some beads that are a little wider, some are thinner, some are a little misshapen. They're cheaper beads, and you're not going to get them to nest like these beads do. That's really important if you want this type of look. If that doesn't matter to you, you can go ahead and use the lesser quality beads, but I strongly suggest these are not that expensive, really, in the realm of things that we buy for our jewelry making. Um, but they nest so beautifully. I don't know if this is too close or whatever, uh, that you're not going to get the same uh, outcome as you would using these precision beads. So that's another thought. Okay, Chris, you said it might be getting better. I mean, other than you know uh, the tension and the weight has something to do with it too, as far as the tension on the cords. The half ounce weight to me is just perfect. I have used an ounce that pulls a little bit more, but a half ounce weight works great. Deb says if your cord is too heavy for the size beads, forget about it. It's true. Now, when I do the size 8 beads, like for a bracelet, I to me, I think that size 11s are a little bit too skinny for a bracelet, but they make a great necklace. But the size 8 beads are a little bit bigger. They make a more substantial bracelet. They also make a really nice necklace too. It's just depends on the look that you're going for. But the tough cord comes in different weights. And um, for these size 11s, I'm using a size 2, where when I use the size 8 beads, I use a size 3 in the cord. Tough cord comes, I think, from size 1, maybe even a 0. I don't know. I've never bought that. But uh, from size 1 to I think about an 8. It may go to 10, but I think it's mainly 1 to 8 as far as the thickness. And it's the lower the number, the skinnier it is. And naturally, the higher the number, the thicker the cord is. They're all good for different kinds of applications. So that's my bit about cord. Now, I just ordered, um, I think, now I can't think of the name of it. If it's Teflex, no, not Teflex. I think it's Tex, TEX -135 cord. It's Beadsmith. I just ordered some of that, but I don't have it yet. But I thought I would give that a shot because um, the tough cord is manufactured by Eurotool, and it's a little bit harder to find. I think if you did a Google search or whatever, you'll find it somewhere, but a lot of places don't carry it. So when I buy it, I usually buy a whole ton of it, but uh, that's my first choice because that's what I found produces the results that I like with the Kumihimo projects. Okay. So, okay, let's see. Yeah, like I said before, I think this is a hard project to wrap your head around the first time around. But once you get going with it, you find your rhythm with it, you are in an area that you can concentrate and not be interrupted. When I've had classes in my studio for this, that's the first thing I tell everybody. Get all your talking out now, because as soon as we start weaving, you really need to not talk and concentrate on what you're doing, because when you're sidetracked, when you're distracted, you will more than likely make a mistake of some sort. So it's just best if you can do this quietly. I find this to be an extremely relaxing technique. I'm doing this a little bit out of my usual position because, like I said, I would normally sit like this and work this way and have my cords unobstructed from anything, and I can just work, just kind of buzz along with it. All right, now say that I had forgotten to put my 3 strands up at the top. I wouldn't really know where to start. I mean, logically, you can maybe take a look at your pattern of what you've done and see where the next space opening might be. but you're taking a chance. So, it's best to make sure to whenever you leave to start talking, whatever, put your third strand up there so you know what your next move is going to be when you go back. That's probably the most important thing I can tell you in this demo. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit more, and then I'll go to the other necklace and finish it off. So that way you can get those things, you can watch those things, how it's done, and then you can replay this. I'm going to put it on YouTube in just a little, after the video's over. It takes a little while to get that loaded. But if you need to, if say you started off with me and you don't feel like you're doing it in the right direction and you need to redo, I would say don't worry about watching me right now live. You can catch it later, take your beads apart or whatever and do a do-over when you can watch, stop it, replay it, and see maybe what you're missing. When you're live, I can't backtrack to what I did at the very beginning. But when it's on video, you can just basically rewind it, whatever, and go back to the start and see the steps. All right, so I'm going to do the upper right to lower right, quarter turn, lower left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn, bottom left to upper left, upper right to lower right, quarter turn. All this stuff becomes a rhythm after a little while. And that's why, I said write on your board, on your disc, those little tips that will reinforce which direction you're supposed to go, when you're supposed to do your quarter turn, and what position to leave your cords in when you have to leave your work. Those are all great little reminders. And then you'll start seeing it come out the bottom. And then as you keep working, it gets longer and longer. And then I'll take my measuring tape and kind of, put it up against here up at the top and measure my length to see how long it's getting to be without disrupting any of the cords on top. And then, like I said, when you've reached your length, then we have to finish it put on the end cones, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. Just wanted to get a couple more rounds on here, and then I'll set it to the side. Is the demo coming out all right still? I know some people have given up, and that's okay. It's totally understandable. This is just a hard one to do on a live broadcast since I can't watch each of you like I could if you were in a classroom and kind of guide you along, if you're in the right position, if you're not, if your tension's wrong, if it's not. But if you haven't done any kumihimo before, a necklace is kind of a daunting first project. It's not that it's not doable, it's just that it is a longer, it's just a longer way to go. A bracelet is a much shorter project, and once you get your beads loaded and everything's set up, get your cords set up, all that, you can make like a 7 or 8 inch bracelet in about an hour. I kid you not, you really can. And like I said, a necklace is going to be a lot longer, but once you get that rhythm, you just keep going with it and until you get the length that you wanted. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you guys are getting something out of it. I know it's frustrating when things start and stop, and I don't know how to slow down the beginning of it more than how I did it. So, and that's why I say watching it on a replay, you can start and stop, wherever you're having the issue, and replay and rewatch it, and maybe you'll get that all figured out. Okay. All right. So say I've done everything. Well, I'm going to put this to the side now. So I'm going to lay it on my vase, and I have my cords just hanging out around. They're just hanging on the outside there. So that way it's not going to get interrupted. If you have cats, put it someplace where they're not going to get at it and bat at the strings and have a blast, and then maybe break your vase and have all the strings come out. Um, Deb, you're so funny. Oh, oh my. Okay, so say you've reached the length that you wanted. Okay. All right. So here we go. So I've got the length just the way I want it here. And I think I've got 22 inches of beads on here. No, I have 18 on here because I'm going to end up using this one. I'm going to end up using this one for one of the Kumihimo fusion necklaces. Okay. So I wanted 18 inches of beads on here because the rest of it I'm going to add chain to. But the endings are the same for either the regular Kumihimo or the fusion one. Okay, so when I know that I want to stop, when the length is right, I have to incorporate the other head pin into this other end because I want to weave this head pin into the cord. All right, that needs to be done. So I have left my cords. When I was done with this, I left my cords at 3 on the top. So I know that my next move is from the upper left to the lower, the upper right to the lower right. And then I have a quarter turn right away. And then lower left to upper left. And make sure that that pin stays in the center. You see that in there? So then I'm going to do the upper right to the lower right, quarter turn, lower left to the upper left, upper right to the lower right, quarter turn, lower left to the upper left, upper right to the lower right, and I'm going to make one more turn, lower right, lower left to the upper left, and upper left, I don't know my right from my left, upper right to my lower right, quarter turn. So now this pin is woven inside here. And that's really, a couple of turns around the whole disc is enough to capture that pin in there. And the reason I'm saying that is because this end cap is not all that large inside. And if you get carried away and you make a nub on the end of your cord, braided a length that's too long, you're not going to be able to shove all that braided cord and a little bit of your beads in this small little cone. So you want to keep aware of that, to just go around a couple of times that you know that your pin's not going to fall out of there. And then what we do, your weight can be off of the, as soon as you go to, the length of your cords or the length of your necklace is going to be, you can take that weight off because you're not adding any more beads. So now Hopefully I can get you where you can see what I'm going to do here. So now I need to take the cords off of the disc. So what I'm going to do is work in opposites. So I'm going to take, well, on either side, I'm going to take these two strands and pull them out of the slots carefully. And basically what I could do, just to make it a little bit easier, is cut off. I don't want to lose these things, so I'm not going to cut it off yet. What I'm going to do is do an overhand knot and pass these bobbins through and just make a knot there. And I'm going to do it twice so that I know it's not going to come apart. Okay, and now I'm going to take the other two cords and make an overhand knot twice. Pull it tight. Oh, come on. Okay. And pull that tight. All right, now I'm going to cut these cords off so I can manage this. I'm only going to cut, let's see here, I'm going to cut about that much off. Okay, so now, I know I told you, and I think I mentioned it earlier, I think I told you way too much cord, but like I said, it's better to err on too much, and then once you get these bracelets or a necklace done like this, you'll know a little bit better how much cord you wasted the first time, so you don't need to use that much. All right, so now what I'm going to do is glue. I'm going to glue this knot before I cut the rest of the cords. And I personally like this Zap. It's like a super gel, a super glue gel. I like the gel more than just the liquid super glue. So, but I suppose super glue is super glue. So I'm going to just pour a little bit, or take a little bit out here. Hopefully it's not dry. Shouldn't be. Just going to take a little bit and coat that knot all the way around with the super glue gel. And then let it dry. I'll probably not let it dry so I can finish showing you how to do this. Okay. I'm going to let that dry a couple minutes, and then I'll work on the other end. So on the other end, this is the part that I started with the hook, and that already incorporated some of the cord. I'm going to straighten out my pin, my head pin, because what I want to do is make a wire wrapped loop on here. So I'm going to just kind of fold that over. Now I've got that little head on this head pin. I'm going to snip that off because that's not needed. And I'm going to make a wire wrapped loop. If you guys don't know how to do that, I've gone over it a bunch of times, but if you don't know how to do it, I've got a video on YouTube on how to make a wire wrapped loop. So I'm going to just wrap this wire around the base. Okay, just 2 wraps is plenty, because there again you can get too long, and then your bead cap or end cap won't fit. Trim off that excess. I didn't do that very well. And now I'm going to slide my bead cap on. See, it's just wrapped around there a couple of times, the wire. And I'm going to slide my bead cap on. And what I like to do is, there's going to be some extra seed beads on your bobbin. And I'm just going to take a seed bead and put that on the top of my cone. Just because I think it looks nice. Nice little finishing touch. And then I'm going to do the wire wrap loop on this end. This end, I'm going to put the lobster claw. Well, actually, for the Kumihimo Fusion, I don't need a lobster claw. But for this one, I don't want to, actually I'm not going to put, I'm going to just show you how to do it. I'm not going to actually permanently place it. I had a lobster claw out here. Whatever did I do with it? Who knows? I'll have to grab another one. Okay, where are you? All right. So I've got my lobster claw right here. And at this point, I would take the lobster claw and put it in here. Well, you know what? I don't have to do that. I don't have to do. I can go ahead and close this just like this, and then I can add a jump ring to this and attach it. There we go. Now I'm using my noodle. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wire wrap this closed. A couple times around is really all you need, as long as you know that you've got, that's going to be a good solid connection there. And I'm going to cut off this excess. And sometimes there's a little piece that's still sticking out. You want to just press that down. And if you've added a seed bead on your wire or on the end of your bead cap, make sure that you don't smash that when you push that little extra wire in. Okay, so then that's one end, and then all you'd have to do is, and I think you guys, I think for the kits that I sent out, I think I forgot to put the little jump ring in, but it's not really a huge deal. If you have a jump ring, go ahead and you can connect it that way. Otherwise, you can just attach your lobster claw directly into this loop before you close it off. However, I rather would have a jump ring to connect them together, because sometimes when you go from the lobster clasp to just this wire connection, they don't turn as well. It gets kind of bound up sometimes, so it's nice to have that little jump ring. So if I forgot to put that little jump ring in there, I apologize, but more than likely you guys have some odd jump ring laying around. Okay, so that's the one end. Okay, that's the one end, and now we go to the other end, and we're going to cut this string off. The glue's not dry, and you really should wait until it's dry, but for the purpose of showing you what I'm doing live, I'm gonna just go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and make my wire wrap loop just like I did on the first one, and try to get it as close to these little threads as possible. I don't want these threads showing through the cap, through the end of the cap. Okay. Twice around is plenty. Just snip off the little head of this. Oh, I've got glue sticking to everything now. That's why you wait until the glue is dry so it doesn't get all over the place. And I'm going to put my end cone in and make sure that I cover up that cord and the beads so that you don't see anything sticking out. Can you see that okay? I hope. So that is a nice finish. There's nothing sticking out. And now I'm going to put a little seed bead on this end. And now on this end, I'm going to make another wire wrapped loop. Now, if you're doing, well, if you're going to be using the lobster clasp, then you'll want to make the opposite loop just a little bit larger, because that's going to act as your connector. All right, so do the wire wrapped loop, make it a little larger. Hold on to that, and pretty sure this one I skipped a bead on, and I'll see if I can locate that and show you what that looks like. All right, so wrap around here. Whoop, a couple of times. If you have space between your wraps and that bead, you could wrap again. You know, I would say wrap again until you reach the bead, and then end your wrapping, because otherwise you're going to have a space of wire between the loop and the little seed bead. Carefully push that little nipped in end of wire so you don't smash the bead, and then you have a nice wire connection for your lobster claw. So that'll be your connection right there. And like I said, this multicolor one is going to be for, I'm going to use this for the Kumihimo Fusion necklace, which I'll probably do just a short video on that next time around. And that way you can see how I connect all the other stuff to it. Or, you know, if you do it, it's the exact same steps that is for the Kumihimo Fusion. Excuse me, I have the burps today. It's the exact same steps as for the silver Kumihimo necklace, but this is shorter because I'm going to add different bits of check glass and stuff on there and come out with this. This is the Fusion kit that I put together. So I'm going to be adding these, the silver chain. Well, you're making your own chain, basically, the section to connect on there. And so that way you can wear it. You can wear it however you want. But I had made this section 18 inches long, but you can vary that. There's no rule. This is just something I came up with, and I thought, it's kind of fun. It's different, and you can kind of play around with it. So I know that I skipped a bead in this one somewhere. As hard as I try not to, it even gets by me still now. Here it is right here. And it's not horrid, but I don't like having, here it is right here. That's where a bead is missing. But truthfully, it's not super noticeable. I think for somebody who's not aware or not looking at it, or, like I said, aware that it could even happen, you're not going to notice that. But as the maker, you notice those things. Okay, so this would be a piece I would not sell. This would be a piece that I would keep for myself, because I can't live with that, with a bead missing. It just, to me, it's just not right. So I put little bigger seed beads on the ends of this particular one. But like I said, I just came up with that on my own, and I think you can do whatever you want on it. So I think with that, that will conclude this. If you guys have a hard time with the replay, I'm going to watch it later. I see just right now it just cut off. If it's really awful and I feel that I need to redo the video, I will, and I'll let you know. But I have to start fresh, because I can't back up and redo steps that I did once you get going with this thing. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of string left over. I guess this wasn't bad. Oh no, I think I made this one shorter because it was the Kumihimo Fusion. I knew I wasn't going to go as long. I think maybe 3 to 3.5 yards would be more appropriate for a longer necklace. The beads that came in the tube in your kit is, I think it's 23 grams. I know I have made a 24-inch out of that, but if you wanted to do like a 26, I don't know if you'd have quite enough. However, that being said, you can always add some extra jump rings on the ends, or a little chain extender, something of that nature, if you wanted it to be a little bit longer than you have beads for. So there are options that you can do, to make it work for you. So I apologize again for the technical difficulties with the internet. It happens. Most videos aren't like that, but sometimes you get a bad one. So we'll do the best we can, though. But I hope that if you have problems, you let me know. I'll try to work through them the best I can. But I gotta say that watching those steps in the beginning, setting up right, marking your board with all the little tips, is very helpful to keep you on track. This is something that once you get it down, you won't ever forget it. I promise you that, unless well, maybe I shouldn't promise, because not all. It's like riding a bike. Once you learn how to do something, it kind of sticks with you once you get in that rhythm. So, Chris, did you get any better with that? Did it help you at all with the beads popping, or not popping underneath, but laying underneath? They kind of have to nestle under that cord. And you really have to keep track that that bead is in the right position, or your thing is going to get wonky. Good. I'm glad. Yeah, it can be frustrating in the beginning, but stick with it if it's something that you think you'll enjoy, because I find it very, very zen. I just enjoy it a lot. So I would keep making this stuff. I'd make one after another, but it's like, what are you going to do with all this stuff? If you don't sell, you accumulate a lot of stuff. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. You just get overloaded with everything. It's honestly, how many bracelets do you need? all of them. I don't know. All right, guys. Like I said, I think I'm going to do the fusion necklace next time. That one probably won't take very long. And if you're going to do that one, or if you bought a kit for that, you can probably get to this point with no problem by following the same instructions. And then we'll just add everything together after that. So, all right. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the group. I already posted the handout, so look for that if you didn't see that. And then I will upload this to the YouTube channel. It probably won't be available till tonight, but I will get right on it. And it just takes a while to get everything downloaded. And, you know, I'll be seeing you in the group if you have any problems or questions. Take care. Bye-bye.